everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Korea This Week. My name is Sang Kim, and today we have Phil Eskeland, KEA's Executive Director of Operation and Policy, with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Phil.
Thank you for having me again.
Great. So let's get started. Again, we'll start with the North Korea issue. And last week we saw a lot of reports from both South Korean sources and also the two think tanks in D.C., CSIS and 38 North, about activities around North Korea's missile launch site in Dongchangni. So there are a lot of news articles and different interpretations, but how should we read this and what does it mean for us?
Well, a National Security Advisor, John Bolton, was saying over the weekend that this may be routine maintenance or minor upgrades, but as long as there's no indication that there was a missile launch or anything like that, it should not be cause for alarm. North Korea may be trying to send a modest signal here, but this shouldn't derail efforts to try to find a peaceful diplomatic solution to the North Korean nuclear issue.
Right. I think I also saw some reports that it also could signal domestic issues as well, right? It's a signal for North Korea's domestic public.
Yeah, in light of
right.
Kim Jong-un didn't come back with a deal or relief on sanctions, so he's got to show some of his elite that he's still tough and proceed with this, but not be so provocative that it would invoke the ire of China or Russia.
Right. And of course, the United States and also as well as the South Korean government is watching this very closely to see if it does evolve to be some bigger issues. But I'm sure you've seen all the articles. It's been all over Twitter and also different media, so you can read more about it. And also, in addition to the different reports on the satellite imagery, this week the UN Security Council panel of experts are supposed to release the report on the sanctions. Yes. So this is done usually twice a year. An interim report is due March, and then the final report is due September to see how the sanctions were implemented, or whether it's been implementing thoroughly by different countries, and what the process is. So based on what we know from the media report, what would be included in the report this time?
Well, I think the aim of the report is to show how creative North Korea is in trying to evade sanctions, because it seems like it's going to document ship-to-ship transfers of oil and coal. Right. It'll document instances of small arms transfers, particularly to rebel movements in the Middle East, and how they raise revenue from there. Right. So it shows that there's still more room for tightening sanctions and enforcement, but this is illicit trade.
Right.
Now, if you trust Chinese customs data, it shows that trade between North Korea and China has dropped quite a bit. But again, North Korea has creative ways of raising revenue outside of legal channels.
Right, and it also has to do with the willingness of the member countries to really follow through and implement the sanctions too, right?
Yes, because there's China could be wanting to do and strongly enforce sanctions on a national level, but maybe there's corrupt local officials that turn a blind eye to a ship-to-ship transfer that may be taking place even in Chinese territorial waters, or a local naval commander also being bribed to look the other way. So there could be a disconnect between what the national government says and how it's actually carried out on the ground.
Right. I think the Russia was also mentioned a couple of times in addition to... yes, quite a time in the report. And as you mentioned, that North Korea is trying to be really creative, right, in terms of how to evade sanctions, and that also shows that they're very desperate. They're willing to do anything and everything in order to create cash flow. And what was really interesting was the cyber attacks being included on the report.
Yes, even some that took place while the summit meeting was going on in Hanoi, according to various media sources. So this gets to another argument or approach that some in the U.S. policymaking community at CSIS last week, Senator Cory Gardner, who's the chairman of the East Asia Subcommittee on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, announced plans that if North Korea is not moving fast enough on denuclearization, he and Senator Markey, who's the leading Democrat on the East Asia Subcommittee, may introduce legislation to impose a total trade embargo on North Korea, which then would escalate the economic retaliation against North Korea and would give us a way to try to stop some of these ship-to-ship transfers and things like that.
Right. And it seems like they're also getting even like the traditional route, in addition to the technical route, is getting more complicated. They're using more, I guess what's to call it? There's more additional steps to involve in trying to make this happen, and also it's hard to track, right? Because it's not just the, like you said, government to government level, but there are also so many people involved in between steps. So it's been
everything. Yeah. Like, I mean, you need the ship's captains to turn off their transponders and things like that. So there's a lot of illegal activities going on. And of course, when you turn off the transponders, that's a big safety issue as well. So North Korea is, doing everything that they can to deal with the sanctions, including violating international maritime law.
Right. So the report is supposed to be released this week, so stay tuned. We'll share the link with you on the comment section. And since we have you, our trade expert, we also wanted to talk about our trade statistic between the U.S. and Korea. And of course, there's in addition to the monthly trade data that came out, we also have the full 2018 annual data on goods trade. So how does it look, Phil?
Well, for Korea, it looks relatively good. Yes, the trade numbers came out for the whole year of 2018. It was delayed by about a month because of the government shutdown. But U.S. exports to the world went up, and so did, and hit a record level. And same thing with South Korea. U.S. exports in goods to South Korea hit a record level. But the U.S. trade deficit hit a record level. But with Korea, it went the opposite direction. So if you see from the chart that we have here, the trade deficit has actually been going down on a decline for the past 2-3 years. The trend started in mid-2016 and is going down, and it was caused mostly in part by a dramatic increase in U.S. exports to Korea, and it was really driven by oil and gas exports. In fact, the number one U.S. export to Korea now is oil and gas.
Oh, wow. Believe
it or not, we reached $8.6 billion, an increase of almost 200%.
Wow, 200%? That's a lot.
Yes.
Double.
So, using the metric of a trade deficit is not good economics, but and lots of people can tell you that, because actually if a trade deficit is down, that usually means the U.S. is in recession. So we don't want that. But this is the reality we're dealing with, and we're showing the trade deficit is dramatically declined. So Korea is trying to respond to President Trump's concern. And the second thing, as a result of that, Korea's role in the overall U.S. trade deficit continues to go down again. And according to the next chart, we dropped 3 rankings. We're now not in the top 10 major trade deficit countries, and in fact, you can see Switzerland came up ahead of
Oh, really?
head of Korea. So maybe too many people are buying Swiss chocolate and cheese and watches. So, but among the top 6 major trading partners of the United States, Korea has the smallest trade deficit. So hopefully this should have implications for the pending 232 report,
right.
dealing with imported autos and auto parts. Again, Korea has done everything that America asked for in terms of renegotiating parts of the Chorus Agreement, including the auto provisions. It agreed to increase its contribution to defense burden sharing.
Right.
It has lowered its trade deficit with the U.S., so hopefully this will lead to better understanding among the Trump administration officials, so that Korea would be exempt from these punitive tariffs.
Right, and these trade areas are very, very important to the U.S. Korea, not only to the U.S. Korea relations, but in international relations in general, right? Not only the military and the security relations is important, but also trade is very important in fostering the relationship between two countries, especially under this administration, where a lot of things seem to be just focused on numbers. So these numbers show that Korea is a strong trade partner to the United States.
Right, and the deficit went down 22%.
Right, which is, I'm sure that's what President Trump would love to hear, right?
Yes.
So with that, that's all we have for today. Is there anything else you'd like to mention what's coming up this week?
Not this week, but keep an eye out to the end of the month where actually this data on services comes out.
From 2018, right?
From 2018.
Right.
And every year, U.S. hits record export of services to Korea, and that results in a trade surplus for us in services. So that should hopefully lower the overall trade deficit even more.
Right. Great. Thank you so much for your trade insights.
You're welcome.
I do want to share one KEI event that's coming up. So on March 19th, KEI is co-hosting an event with HRNK. The event is titled North Korea Logistic Evolution. It's on cell phones and private transportation inside North Korea, and it will be with Mr. Young-Huk Kim, KEI's non-resident fellow. It will be a very interesting topic, so please do go on our website and RSVP for the event. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.